A lot of people commented on my last video about property tax. I noticed something comes up every time this topic gets mentioned. People complain a lot, but almost nobody, in fact I can't think of a single person, who talked about what they're actually going to do about it. I'm not rich, I'm free, and that's not a slogan, it's a set of choices. Property tax is real. It's not going anywhere, and sitting around angry about it isn't going to change anything. So in this video, I wanted to talk openly and honestly about property tax, what it is, what it isn't, and how I've chosen to deal with it without allowing it to control my life. And if you're serious about off-grid living, this matters. A lot of comments summarized property tax in similar ways. Many said that it makes this lifestyle impossible. Many said that if you pay property tax, you're really not free. And that property tax is the system that's keeping you trapped. And I get it. I understand your perspective, but property tax feels different when it's the only bill. I understand why people feel that way, but this is the part that most people skip. Complaining feels productive, but it isn't. It doesn't change your tax bill. It doesn't change your zoning. It doesn't buy you time. All it does is keep you stuck in the same place mentally. Property tax is not a surprise. It's a known cost. And when you have a known cost, you have two choices. Either you build your entire life around it to work with it, or you let it quietly control every decision you make. Eliminating property tax completely is a wonderful idea, and I, personally, would like to lend my efforts towards making that happen. But until that happens, smaller land, lower assessed value, simple buildings and basic construction. I'm going to focus on reducing its impact on my life as much as possible. No mortgage stacked on top of it, and no wild out-of-the-box lifestyle that absorbs my income. I'm creating a lifestyle that doesn't require an exorbitant amount of cash flow. That's what people miss. Freedom isn't about paying nothing, it's about needing very little. I kept the land small on purpose. So if you get very small land, you don't have huge outbuildings and whatnot, the cost can be very minimal rather than extremely high. You're choosing a less desirable location and makes it more affordable. Overbuilding is where people get stuck. When your expenses are limited enough, property tax stops being a threat and it just becomes a line item. Something you plan for once a year instead of something that owns you every month. Most people try to solve this backward. They want the perfect life before they even begin to live. I did the opposite. I changed how I lived first, and then the numbers started to math. And no, it's not for everyone, but if off-grid living is something you're serious about, this is the part you have to face honestly. Not politically, not emotionally, but practically. Because freedom isn't something you argue about online. It's something that you begin to build in real life. Alright, so here's how that looked for me. For me, it was the assumption that some costs are unavoidable, and designing my life around those costs so that they do not dominate my life. Property tax is one of those costs. I don't agree with it philosophically. I don't like it. But I also don't let my feelings about it dictate my decisions. I treat it like it's the weather. It just is. I bought a small piece of land, which, by the way, is 6 times the size of a large lot in the city, because It was within my budget. I could pay in cash for it, and the property tax was not a big deal. These are things I researched before I jumped head in. I didn't chase an imaginary vision of freedom that required a large amount of cash flow to bring to fruition. I kept the buildings simple. No overbuilding. No extras, nothing flashy. I didn't do anything to impress anyone else. Everything had a purpose, and anything unnecessary was left out. That matters because assessments follow improvement. I avoided debt. That's a big one. Property tax feels different when it's your only major bill instead of mortgage stacked on top of utilities and bills and extras, and a lifestyle that requires steady income just to stay afloat. And that's where everyone feels trapped. It's not the tax bill alone, it's the tax bill and everything else. When you remove enough of the other pressures, property tax suddenly isn't such a crisis. Another thing people overlook is flexibility. When the cost of living is low, a bad year isn't going to destroy you. You can make it through a rough month. And this applies beyond property tax. Zoning, permits, rules, none of that disappears just because you're off grid. The point is, you don't need perfect conditions to get by. But you can choose where to live, how much you build, and how complicated to make your life. It seems like most people want the end result without adjusting inputs. They want total independence while keeping the same expectations, same spending habits, and same pace of life. That doesn't work. The people who succeed are the ones who accept trade-offs early and intentionally. They choose simpler solutions. They delay gratification. They build resilience instead of chasing comfort. That's not glamorous. It doesn't make for flashy videos, but it works. And this is where I want to be really clear about something. Off-grid living is not escaping responsibilities. It's choosing responsibilities on your own terms. You're still going to be accountable. You're still going to have obligations. The difference is, those obligations don't own you anymore. When I say I'm not rich, I'm free, that's exactly what I mean. Not that I don't pay for anything. I'm not saying there are no rules. I'm saying I live in a way that those things don't dictate every step that I make. If you're serious about this lifestyle, stop trying to eliminate every single problem. Start asking how to design your life so that those problems have less power over you. That shift will change everything, and that's really the point of the video. Not to convince anyone, and not to argue, just to share what's worked for me quietly over time. Freedom isn't loud, it's deliberate.